how incredible was it to see, of all the players, Brad Marchand get 2 goals and then the breakaway winner? I mean, there's so much talent on both sides, but this is, that veteran that's been around for a long time coming through.
Yeah, he's been clutch for the Florida Panthers all playoffs long. As a diehard Leaf fan, we know Brad Marchand very well. He's been a thorn in the Leaf side for the last, I would say, almost 8-9 years. So to see him flourish in the Stanley Cup Finals, it's not anything new. He's a great player. He gets under your skin. He has talent. He has some hands. He can score. He can set up his teammates. He's been everything and more that the Florida Panthers wanted from him. When they acquired him earlier this season.
All right, so we've seen some high-scoring affairs, or at least relative to some of these totals. We have seen overtime in each game thus far. Do you think we continue to see that? Like, usually when you have a goalie, at least on one side, that's really good, like Bobrovsky is, you would say, okay, eventually he's going to shut down these goal scorers, but also both of these offenses are really good. Do you have a leaning towards a total in this game? Is it goals continue to be scored, or do you think things lock up as the series goes on?
Yeah, so I think we're in a position where we're going to see a little bit tighter defensive action, especially with the scene shifting to Florida. The Oilers are kind of on a run where they've scored three or fewer goals in 3 of their last 4 road games. The number has stayed under 6.5 in 5 of the last 7 Panthers home games. Both goalies, Bobrovsky, he's got a .935 save percentage, over his last 11 starts, which is, absurd essentially. The results always haven't been there, but he's kind of standing on his head like we know he can. Shutting down Draisaitl and McDavid is always a tough ask, regardless of who's in net and who the opposition is. But I do believe both goalies have what it takes, in Florida to get that, shutdown game for their team. And I think we're going to see a tighter checking game here without, a barrage of power plays. There was 10 in game 2, a couple of power play goals, a shorthanded goal. I don't think we're going to get that in game 3 in Florida.
Chris, when you look at how game 2 ended, and both of these games have obviously gone to overtime, when you handicap aside, I mean, obviously we're going back to sunrise here, but certainly the Panthers had the momentum now, right? Because that was a crucial win that they needed. They took home ice advantage back. Do you take that into account, or can you take that into account, like a team coming off a big win versus a team coming off a disappointing loss?
In the Stanley Cup Finals, I don't think so. Maybe earlier on in the playoffs when teams are fresher and they got a little bit, there's fewer days in between games, essentially. They're playing every other day in the first and second round for the most part. Both teams know what's at stake here. An overtime win in game 1 for the Oilers, they could have gone up 2-0. An overtime win in game 2 for the Panthers. Anything could happen in game 3, essentially. I don't think there's too much momentum on either side for either team. Both teams know what's on the line, and I think they're going to give their best in game 3.
Yeah, from a betting standpoint, I always like to feel like I have an edge, or I feel confident in one side or one pick. But when you see the first 2 games going to overtime, I'm a casual hockey fan, and I say this maybe is not something I want to pick a side on. And you see, even with the odds makers, the home team is only -140 here. Do you feel confident in a side in this game?
No, I would stick away from the side. My best bet is the total. I like the under 6.5. If we're having to pick a side, you kind of got to look at a couple of key factors, goaltending being one of them. Stuart Skinner on the road, he's kind of been shaky so far. He had 2 games, early on in the series or in the playoffs versus the Kings where he gave up 5 and 6 goals. But since then, he's only given up 8 away goals over his last 4 starts. That's not too bad for, a goaltender that's kind of been thrown under the bus, time and time again by the Oilers and the media. Bobrovsky, like I said, .935 save percentage. He's been solid for them. I think this game's going to come down to depth. I do like the Oilers' depth a little bit more. Nugent Hopkins might not go for them on the top 6. Tonight, he's kind of uncertain. Nobody knows, what the issue is. But bottom 6 for bottom 6, I do believe that the Oilers have an edge. But, Bobrovsky kind of makes up that difference. So I do lean Florida tonight, but I definitely think it's going to be a lower scoring game.
We're talking with Chris Vasile. He is the publishing editor and betting analyst for Covers.com. Yeah, non-betting question here. I mean, it feels like, and I just wanted your opinion as an NHL expert, it feels like, and it's only been 2 games, but it feels like this has all the makings of a real classic when you look back at previous Stanley Cup finals, because, I mean, everything we've seen, this has absolutely lived up to the billing.
100%. As a neutral, I don't think you could have asked for a better start. 7 goals in game 1, 9 goals in game 2, both overtime finishes. The latest tying goal in Stanley Cup history by Corey Perry in game 2. A couple of greasy overtime winners. Draisaitl's was solid in game 1. Marchand just kind of snuck it under Skinner's pads in game 2. I mean, it's fast, it's physical. Connor McDavid is worth the price of admission at loan. He's been unreal. His chemistry with Leon Draisaitl has kind of been ratcheted up a notch, and that's just kind of, it makes everything a little bit more special when he got that generational talent. Kind of, you're rooting for him a little bit more than you are the other team.
All right, so we were talking before the show, and you're Canadian, and I feel like something I keep coming back to as a casual hockey fan is that a Canadian team has not won the Stanley Cup since 1993. Is this something that people from your country are upset about? Is this not a thing? Because I understand not everybody's like the SEC in football saying, hey, as long as our conference wins something, and you say, hey, as long as our country wins something. Is this a big deal to Canadians, or am I making a big deal out of nothing?
To be honest, it's a little bit of both. You got some say that, they'll root for a Canadian team no matter which Canadian team's in the final. As I mentioned, a diehard Leaf fan here, like, I'm kind of torn. Do I want a Canadian team to win that's not the Leafs? Somewhat. But I'd rather a Canadian team win than the Florida Panthers, who obviously knocked out the Leafs and, have won or on the verge of back-to-back cups potentially. So yes and no. It depends on your allegiances to which team you choose and how kind of diehard you are. But it would be nice for the cup to come back north of the border.
Chris, if you don't want to bet a side and maybe like a total here, is there a prop or another bet in this market that maybe you're eyeing?
Yeah, so there's a player prop that I've been eyeing for a day or two now. It's not sexy in terms of McDavid, Barkov, or Draisaitl. It's Victor Arvidsson over 1.5 shots on goal at plus 110. That's kind of widely available. He's playing fourth line minutes, but he's still playing 14, 15 minutes a game for the Oilers. He's got 5 shots on goal through the first 2 games of the series. And with Edmonton being the away team, Florida's going to have that edge in terms of matching up against McDavid and, the top 2 lines for the Oilers. Knoblauch's going to have to roll the lines. He's going to have to give that fourth line, some time. And I do believe they have the opportunity to take advantage of the bottom 6 matchup against the Florida Panthers. And Victor Arvidsson, he's kind of, he's an experienced veteran. He knows what it takes to, get the job done. And at 1.5 shots on goal plus money, I can't pass that up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask quickly, and again, I want to preface that I am a hockey casual. Is there anything worth betting on in the Conn Smythe Trophy?
Other than Connor McDavid, I don't think so. I think he's still going to be, handed the trophy regardless if he wins or loses, just like last year. He's got 5 points through 2 games. He's basically, a walking highlight reel. Unless Bobrovsky goes on a major run and just kind of shuts the door and, shuts him out a couple times down the stretch here. He's the second choice in the market, but I think it's Connor's to lose. And Bobrovsky might have an outside chance if Florida, gets the job done and really limits the Oilers' production in the next 2 games at home.
So do you think it's Florida that hoists the cup here, or is Edmonton finally going to break through here and win their first cup since 1990?
The heart wants to go with Edmonton. The mind kind of wants to go with the Panthers just based on the goaltending situation. I trust Bobrovsky a little bit more than Skinner. It's tough. I see this going at least 6 games, obviously, maybe even 7. I think it's going to go the distance. If McDavid can will his way to victory, he will. So I'll give the edge slightly just because he's the best player in the world to Edmonton, but it's going to be tough sailing for them.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, it looks like we're going to get one of these all-time series. So that's exciting to watch, and it's been great having you here on the show. He is Chris Vasile, publishing editor and betting analyst for Covers.com. Find him on X at Muck_SILLY3, Muck Silly. Hey, Chris, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.